Hi there, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. And I have the good fortune of welcoming Dan Lexow to join me today for an in-depth conversation. He is a non-dual teacher, and he has a channel here on YouTube called Consciousness in Motion, in which he interviews and he talks to people and he shares from his own direct experience about awakening, honoring the self, and healing modalities. So thank you for joining me, Dan. I'm really, really excited about today's episode. And it'd be great maybe for you to share your awakening story if you would like.
Hello, Julie, and thanks for having me on your channel. It's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm excited. Sure. I can share a little bit of my story. Um, well, I got somehow I got born into spirituality. I didn't know, I didn't choose that in that way or sense. When I was a young boy, I saw my father practice yoga and doing the asanas and breathings and headstand and stuff, and I found that to be very normal. But later on, I realized, well, that is not so normal. That your father goes into a room, locks himself, and sometimes I'm inside, sometimes not, and he does his thing there, and was fascinating to see that this gives him some kind of energy and power to go through life and achieve things in life and be healthy and happy, I guess. Um, so mm, let's go back a little bit more because that might be interesting for people. How the moment I knew that there is something outside of this normal perceiving. I have not shared this story a lot, but I will share it today. So I was about 9 years old, and it was night already, nighttime, and I was on the way to my room to go to sleep, and suddenly I heard a voice in my ear, a female voice, who said um, the name of my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, is dead. That was the sentence. I was like, whoa, what is this? Because I was so young, I did not know what to do with it. I did not tell my parents because I already found that it's like kind of weird, and is my mind playing a trick on me or whatever. But what do you do with this information? So I was a little bit confused, but I went to bed. And in the morning, when I woke up, I I woke up from my parents crying, sitting on their bed, and I asked them what happened, what's going on, and they said, well, your grandfather died, and I was in shock, because it was absolutely true, and and well, from that moment on, I knew there is something there, whatever it might be, and I was kind of, yeah, that was just the moment where I knew that there is something, and it took many years. Um, at some point, I started practicing yoga myself, um, fairly late, actually, about 19 years old. Uh, and I found the exercises that I was doing, they felt very familiar. They felt like I have already, you know, they felt like it's not something new. It's something that I have been always doing. I could do them all immediately. There was no resistance to even more complicated exercises. Later on, the one where in hatha yoga, where you turn your stomach for cleaning your massaging your bowels and inner organs and stuff, and that happened from the first time. It's actually not normal. You have to train a little bit to get to that stage, but this happened. So um going on, when as a young man, then I went to I suppose I'm still young, but I went to study, and I met immediately, called the teacher that taught my father, because up until that point I had no contact to him, nothing. We knew that he existed, and he taught my father how to practice yoga, but my father is not of that spiritual type where he's going for realization. He was using it more for you know for for being healthy in that sense. And then I met my yoga teacher, my yoga guru, and spend time with him. His way of teaching was like once a week. He gathered. He had rented a hall, and everybody could come on a Saturday and be part of the lesson, of the practices that were done, and that's it. And in the meantime, we saw each other a few times. I was visiting him in his home, or we were having like conversations on the phone. And this was how my yoga education went. And I learned a lot of interesting things. I learned that telepathy is a thing. That this is a real thing. It's not just some hocus pocus stuff. Because, man, so many things are coming to mind today. But I'll share them if that's interesting. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I
The-
mean, let me just say, just from
yes.
the beginning,
Yeah.
you and I have such similar stories because,
Mm.
like you, I had an experience with my grandfather who died when I was 8 or 9,
Mm.
and I left my body, and he came to say goodbye.
Wow.
And the next morning, I went off to school. I was scared to say anything.
Mm.
And I came back to find my parents were crying because my grandfather had died
Oh.
at 5 a.m. when I'd had this dream
Yeah.
with him. He called me and to say goodbye. And then the same thing, although I didn't have a parent that was interested in yoga, my parents were not spiritual or interested in anything.
Mhm.
I had this drive and desire to learn about meditation and yoga, and I was the only one in the family, and I was doing my asanas
Yeah.
behind the sofa where I could find a space in the living room. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because so far our stories are so much the same. But
Mm.
please, yes, please share whatever you feel is in your heart that you feel you want to say.
Well, that would be a little bit a deviation to talk about that telepathy does exist, but somehow all these, these strange powers that are, or and not strange, but powers that are accredited to yogis, they really do exist.
Yes, the
That
cities,
and
the
this
supernatural
is,
powers.
yes.
Yeah,
And it was not like that. My teacher never talked about it. He actually said that everybody that seriously practices yoga at some point gets them. And
yeah,
that this is not a huge thing and not a big thing in
no,
that sense, and that there is not to be paid too much attention to that. You
mm-hmm.
just practice, and these powers will come, and it doesn't matter if they come or if they don't come. This is not the
Yes,
important thing. The thing, what is important is um, to do the yoga, or in other words, to unite with that what is
yeah,
the higher consciousness in that sense. And yeah, and there were times when I was practicing doing my exercises, and I thought I was talking to him in my mind, complaining about something, and then the next time we talked on the phone, and he was giving me the solution to exactly that, but not. It was very, very concrete. It is not like this happens on coincidence that somebody talks about exactly that same thing there. So I will share this story probably on my channel in more detail. Maybe that's interesting. But yeah, I kept doing my yoga throughout my life, and it did give me strength and energy to realize what I want to do in life. But the how should we call it, self-realization is not something that, some people, for them it doesn't happen in this lifetime, you know and at some point I was really tired, and I did not expect this to happen anymore. I was happy the way I was, or more or less. I accepted that this might not happen, but what can you do now? What can you do more? I mean, you just continue, and that's it. And then I came to non-duality, um, and finally decided to spend time with non-duality, because it came to me before, but I couldn't understand it. I couldn't grasp the teaching. I just, superficially, yes, and I really sensed, like, deep inside, there is a big truth to that. This is probably it, but I just couldn't get it. And then when I was already tired, really tired from everything, I took it upon me, and was listening 24 hours almost a day for 2.5 years to the teachings and reading different YouTubes, different audios, and always at the same time, reflecting inside of myself. And at some point, it just clicked. It was a video from Rupert Spira, and he said something to the sort of, there is only the knowing of it, and that was it. It sounds so weird. Sometimes it's just a word or a sentence, and you've been looking all your life.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. The kind of phrase or sentence that
yeah,
kind of clicked for me
yeah.
was recognition of the self. Recognition of the self is the self. Honor that recognition. And it just became very clear that the place within me, or the state, or whatever you want to call it, that recognizes the truth, in the great beings, in the presence of the great beings, in the words of the great beings, is already the self, and it's already here. That recognition itself is the self.
Yeah, that was your sentence.
That was my sentence. So, but somehow we have to, I think, it seems, we have to kind of do the work to explore all these other kind of phases or places or whatever, exercise, whatever you want to call it, practices,
Yes.
before we're ready to recognize what is already here and is innate to our being.
It's true. It's true. I've come to a very interesting realization. And I'll give you the analogy of a mountain. Okay, that seems to be a good one for me. I came up with it. Imagine a nice, beautiful mountain, and we want to go to the mountaintop, right? So the mountaintop is self-realization. And there's a group of people who start from the bottom and they go up a path. And there's a lot of struggle, right? A lot of development and sadhana, and everything is included in that. And then there is another group that says, okay, we're going to take a helicopter up to the mountaintop. And we start from there. Just why should we do all the struggle, all these painful years? Why not just go directly to the top? And that was what would be today described as non-duality, or the direct path, or however you want to call it. But now here comes a very interesting part. When you are up there, if I can say so, on the mountaintop, and you look down and you say, okay, right now, okay, this is the mountaintop. Okay, but now I have to go back down and I have to live a life. But the helicopter is gone. So you will have to take the path down the same way that other people came up. So what I'm trying to say is that realization, in a way, can for some people not be complete in that sense, because it is not enough to just be self-realized. You cannot be a bad person at the same time, you see? But realizing the self does not include that you are really a good person, or you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
When we go up the mountain, we cultivate being good, doing good, being compassionate, being kind, being of service, etc., etc. And these are very, very important qualities that are needed to have a really fulfilled and successful life. So when we come down, if we want or not, we have to cultivate these qualities. So the people that come up, they have already up the mountains, they have already done this work, and then realization can be really kind of really complete. The other way around is what we see today a lot, that people get some glimpse or type of realization, but then they call it I have to integrate it, or it must be integrated into your daily life. And this is a process probably that will never really stop. I'm not sure if this process will ever stop, but there is a deep underlying sense of peace, that comes with it, at least for
Yes.
my
Yeah.
experience. And out of that peace comes happiness.
Yes. 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 And I absolutely agree 100% with what you're saying, because what I found in terms of my own kind of journey and recognition is the importance of doing shadow work. Because if you don't deal with the psyche, if you don't deal with your anger and frustration, despair, depression, and all of those things, even if you attain some level of awareness or awakening or recognition, you still have to work on the psyche, because the psyche will keep tripping you up, which is why you see, enlightened teachers who suddenly find that there's problems with, having affairs with their followers, or behavior that isn't in accordance with truth, because there's a lot of undealt with psychological kind of baggage, and that really has to be looked at, and that is the work of integration, and it's kind of the grounding work, with respect to being able to honor the self in a way that has integrity and is authentic and is really, grounded in the world, and in a way that is authentic.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You cannot go around that in a sense. Yeah, it's the thing is that it's very, I found, in theory, the philosophical part, in theory, there is nobody who has to get or be integrated.
Right.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. But the practice has told us otherwise. And it's not, and that's the part where it's very individual for everybody, because either you were in the group that came up the mountain and you have cultivated a lot of stuff, or you're starting really from the top and have no idea of anything that is part of it. And this can be described also, I don't know who came up with the term. I think it was Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, the dark night of the soul,
Mm-hmm.
and the shadow work aspect that you mentioned, that can definitely come in. It there is this aspect with me as well, in this composition here, right here, but not as strong. I'm not perfect in any way, you know. But it seems like these what was before does not have such a grasp on me,
Right.
and there are things that can come up, but the power, their power is gone. I
Yes.
it cannot really, yeah. And this is a good sign, actually, that if you look inside yourself, or for the viewers and listeners, you know to see if this is something that is happening with you.
Yes. So instead of being pulled, prior to this kind of recognition, being pulled into these dramas or this kind of thought patterns and wheels and beliefs that can go
Mhm.
on for hours or
Yes.
days, where you're offended or upset with somebody or something, it can go on and on and on and on. It kind of passes through. It's seen and it passes through without
Mm.
having the same impact and sort of detriment to you. And sometimes it's so fast, it just whizzes by.
Mm.
Other
Mm.
times it just needs a little reflection, and I'll say, what is this showing? What am I meant to see here? And so it does still happen. It's not like all of a sudden, the slate is wiped clean, so to speak. There's an awareness that's awoken to itself. Awareness is aware of itself, is the way I always put it, and it sees what comes and goes. It sees the movement, and it's not, there's no kind of pulling in the same way. That's how I would put it.
Yes, yes, totally. And actually, you don't really even have to do anything. This is the
No.
aspect that a lot of people say, but it's also very much at times misinterpreted.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, awareness is aware of itself. Things happen in life. emotions, thoughts, relationships, etc. And there is a type of energy to that, right?
Yes.
But it is noticed, and it plays out by itself without you having to do anything,
Yes.
simply by the effortless recognition of itself by itself. It gets worked out in a way, and just don't get in the way, right, of it.
Yes.
Just let it happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
uh,
And it's
and
simple. It's really simple, actually.
it can be simple, but it can be, of course, also very overwhelming in the beginning stages for people that jump right down and try to come down from the mountain. I've noticed a lot of this we don't, I had an interesting discussion lately with somebody who was quite who was on a spiritual path for a long time, and he was quite against what non-dual teachers are saying, because it seems to him like you don't have to do anything, right? And you're already that. We've heard that uh,
Yes.
all the time, a million times, and just let go or whatever. And that to him seems to be like a hindrance or something that can stop you from real spirituality or getting to wherever you want to go,
Yes. Yes.
achieving
Yes.
something. And it
Yes.
is
Yes. Go ahead.
no, please, please.
No, I was going to say, and it can also be very frustrating for seekers to hear that you don't have to do anything. It's you are already that, and it can be so 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 frustrating.
Yes.
And I was on a seeking path for close to 30 years. I mean, for years. I had a radical Kundalini awakening in
Mm,
1989. And then I was just like, I was on fire with devotion and love, for the guru, that the master yogi I was working with, the guru, and doing all these practices and meditation and chanting and this and that and the other, yoga, and on it went. And again, it felt really innate, like I'd done it before. It was just so natural to me, so it was kind of easy in a way.
mm,
But then after a while, towards the end, I just got so sick of the whole seeking game.
mm.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, what if I spent all these years seeking and then I'm on my deathbed and I say, well, that was a bloody waste of time, I didn't do anything.
Yes.
And it was with that recognition I realized seeking was the obstacle.
Yes.
And I just dropped everything. I just dropped everything completely, let everything go.
Mm,
And the only thing that felt like, I don't want to say it had value, but it was the only thing that was drawing me, was going into the silence as deeply as I could within my own being and just seeing how far I could go. So no matter what I was doing during the day or at work or wherever I was, it was just deepening into the silence. And even when I was speaking, dropping into the silence that is prior to anything being spoken was
mm.
this kind of practice, or this pull.
Yes.
And then it was shortly after that that this sentence landed, and I heard it, or awareness sat up. Let's say, recognition of the self is the self. Honor that recognition. So, I guess there's just different
Mm,
ways, and millions of ways
mm,
that people find themselves drawn into this place of seeking, 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 and then
mm.
waking up. But for me, I guess I was very stubborn, maybe. I don't know, because I really believed that the practices would take me there. And in a way they do, right? It's kind of
Yeah. It's not, these years, they are not lost. That's the
mm-mm.
thing. It's all just happening like it has to. Yeah. The beautiful thing is then you finally know, or better said, the seeking stops. And that's when you know.
Yes.
The seeking stops, and it's like a whole backpack of very heavy stuff. You lose it.
Yeah. Yes.
Ah,
There's because there's a weight to it. The thing I realized was this tremendous weight
yeah.
to it. And it's been very helpful, because when I work with people one-on-one who are kind of going through the same thing, I can speak from my own experience and kind of support that, because I understand where they're coming from. And also realize that you kind of have to come to that place within yourself at a certain time before you're ready to put the weight of it down. Because I used to feel I've invested all this time and energy in seeking. What happens? It's always
Mm.
like almost like a fear of stopping it, because then what is that? There's nothing.
Mm.
So, but yeah, that was definitely a part of it. And I think in a way there has to be kind of a seeking element for anybody to at least be interested in discovering the truth for themselves.
Yes, yes, it's the name of the game actually. It's kind of, when you look at it, like the Zen circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start somewhere and you look for this, you look for that, you try this, you try that, da 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 da, da until you end up at yourself again,
Yes.
if I can say so. And this is the play of the of the self as well. It kind
Mm-hmm.
of hides itself inside of us and everything, just to be seen or recognized again. um, it's so weird, but that kind of interacts with the saying in spirituality that we hear a lot, that we have to kill the ego or the ego must die.
Yes.
Right. And it's a little bit radical, and in a sense, it is true. And then we realize, well, the ego has never really existed. But
Yes.
this separate type of idea, the egoic idea, is the one that is doing all the searching, and it is not something different from the self, actually. It is
Mm-hmm.
something that arises in the self, but it is
Yes.
not your true nature. In that sense, we can ease off a little bit on the hating on the ego.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, okay, we know it is exact. This is the key point
Mm-hmm.
that we realize that there is no ego.
Mm-hmm.
The ideas that we had about ourselves were just hypnosis. Like I say,
Yeah.
they are ideas. It is a story that you tell yourself. In the beginning, somebody starts telling you the story. You are
Mm-hmm.
this, that. Then you
Mm-hmm.
add on to the story, or you change the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in modern psychology, we have the so-called self-image, right? You can change change a self-image, and you can be a totally different person, but you are still a person. A person
Mm-hmm.
is somebody who, a persona is a mask. You know that. So we can change the mask, but we cannot change ourselves, and we will keep changing masks because we will not stay happy with whichever mask we have on. That's the thing.
Yes.
After a while, you will get tired even of the best, fanciest, newest mask that you put on.
Yes. Even the spiritual mask.
Yes, that is another one that comes in now. Yeah, like today, it's very modern and it's very popular to be spiritual. And it's good and it's beautiful, and at the same time, we have a lot of pitfalls because we don't know what we're looking for. But it's
Yeah.
okay. I don't want to judge it, because it's happening like it's happening, and it's good, and everybody has to start from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, like you said, a lot of people come to the direct understanding after 20, 30, 40 years doing something else, or looking for it in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Which was certainly my way, which isn't, it's just it is what it is.
yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think you can go around avoiding the work. You can't, because I think part of the issue with that is there's often an avoidance of one's humanity, which is where we get the spiritual bypassing thing happening.
Mm.
And denying your feelings, denying your needs, and trying to be some superhuman advaita expert or whatever. And you do see that quite a bit in some of the chat groups online, where there's these,
Mm.
there'll be sweeping statements about, you don't exist, and which may be true, but if there's a denial of what a person is going through, like
Mhm.
say if they're mourning the death of a loved one, or a child or something,
Mhm.
it's not very compassionate and humane,
Yeah.
because the story must be included in the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of these problems that you talked about right now, that people from quote unquote outside, it's difficult for them to relate to these sayings or teachings you don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something from my point of view, which is very important to understand, we have established that in the beginning, that we live in very modern times where we have internet communication, we can talk to other people at the end of the world, etc. And it was not always that way. So somebody who was in the past, who was looking for a teacher, probably was looking for a long time, and either he found a teacher or not. And then he spent time with this teacher, right? What happens is, it's up to you, and if the teacher likes you and wants to teach you, he will, but you have to do your effort on your side. And this is where the Advaita or direct teaching can be mistaken, because there are elements to it in teaching it actually properly. I'm not saying that I'm doing it in that way. I'm doing it more spontaneously. There is a ground framework. First, you have to listen. You have to be very open. You have to listen. Then you have to understand intellectually. Very good. You have to understand it very well. And then you have to find it in yourself. And this is not doing nothing. It's actually a practice. It is meditation, just not that very still one. Well, it is a still
Yeah.
one, but it is, you go deep by investigating your true nature, yourself. Basically, you're meditating on God.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very, okay, we can use these words. You meditate on your true self, and then you find out what it is. What kind of qualities does it have? Does it have qualities? You know, do you feel that it was ever born? Do you feel that it is limited or unlimited? Um, is there anything else you can find? All these questions, they, after a while, they get answered by themselves. But it is not included with no work. Like you said, you were spending a lot of moments during the day, during your day, in abiding in silence. And that's it, actually, until it finally clicks. What is it there that is abiding? you know
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
so obvious. It's like it's actually shining. That's why in some texts they say it's like shining, like I don't know how many suns, a million suns, or it is there. It is your true self, and it's everybody's self. We share it, actually. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I mean, one way of explaining it as well, I'll always ask, have you had an intuition? Has this kind of flash of insight ever landed? Or
Mm.
have you read a book from a spiritual teacher or enlightened master where you felt this resonance? And most people say yes to, these questions I'll ask,
Mhm.
and then I'll say, well, this place of recognition within you is the self, and it's always there. It's not like you even have to go looking for it, right? Or when you recognize when somebody's speaking from a place of truth, or alternately when they're not, when they're giving you a load of
Mhm.
bull.
Mhm.
So just like this recognition, this place of recognition is the self, and it's already here. But of course, what happens is, for most people, they don't trust that,
Mm.
or they think it's just a flash of lightning, and then they have to go searching for it to try and bring it back to become established in it.
Yeah, yeah. It's because we look with the mind first, and
Yes.
with the mind we cannot find it.
No.
The mind is inside of it.
Yes.
If
Yes.
I know we're objectifying a little bit here, but it's because of language.
Yes.
Otherwise, there's no way to explain. Um, yeah, yeah. We look with the mind, and we cannot see it with the mind. So when we shut up finally, and this is why Ramana Maharshi and all the great teachers say that it is the silence that is the teacher. In the silence, you will find the truth, and it's absolutely true. That which knows is you.
Yes.
Not the mind. Do you know your body? Yes. Can you know your mind? Yes. Can you know your outside world? Yes. Well, then this is not you. So what are you? No?
Yes.
And
Yes.
we have to do the loop oftentimes again and again and again and again until. And the funny thing is that when, this realization of yourself happens, it's so evident and you're wondering, how could I have missed that? How is it possible that I have overlooked it? Because we're looking for something really special,
Yeah.
special in the sense of extraordinary. But the extraordinariness is actually this life itself. You see, this is actually very, very extraordinary. There's not going to happen like a big firework in this moment, at least for most people. Some,
Hmm.
like you said, you had a very big Kundalini activation, which probably also led to your final recognition. But most people, a lot of people, they don't get these,
No.
mm, you know, experiences. So it's
Yeah. It's all very different for
yeah,
everybody.
uh,
So, that's the other tripping point. Often people think I have to have a big Kundalini experience, or I have to, become psychic or have all these visions, or something amazing has to keep happening to me before I
mm,
can realize the self. And of
yeah,
course, that's not true. That
yeah,
that all those things, I think, in a way, are just kind of byproducts of this of consciousness or the awakening of that.
yeah,
And maybe they need to be dramatic. Maybe my experiences need to be dramatic to
yeah.
kind of get my attention. And for other people, it's more subtle. It might just be a flower blossoming or blooming in the sunlight or something.
Yes, 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 exactly. Yeah,
And because it's always everything's always pointing us to the truth of what is already here.
yeah,
It doesn't need us to kind of exert any effort other than obviously paying attention. We need to, pay attention to what is
yeah.
here in our lives and not try and
Mm.
run away from it, because that's the other side of it. With spiritual practices, there can
Mm.
be this drive to keep, using the practices to get out of or get away from, the frustration that is there or the anger that is there or whatever, rather than just stopping and meeting it and having a conversation with it.
Yeah, that's actually very important to not run away or hide from life. Because a lot of people, like you said, they hide behind spirituality, or they want to save themselves from suffering with spirituality. Okay, yes, that is the sense of it in a way, but they hide behind it, and then they build up this new facade, you know. Um, and even that, everything has to be discarded, everything in the end, so that you can really shine like what you are. And another thing came to mind, that, like we said, we have access to a lot of material nowadays, and there are a lot of people giving you pointers, and that is very good and very beautiful. Um, Sometimes a real close one-on-one interaction in real life actually gives a lot of people the spark, because there is this undescribable, hmm, sometimes, where the spark just jumps over, when you're really, I mean, when you're in one room.
Yes.
Um, so my what I wanted to give as advice, to listen to a lot of stuff, but then to stick to that which resonates with you the most, which gives you the most peace while listening, the most happy feeling, and the where you're the most time in this state of reflective investigation, kind of meditation, when you're listening to someone talking. And that's doing it over and over and over again will finally, eventually, come to its own realization.
Yeah. And the thing that I've found is that an authentic guru or enlightened master, whatever you want to call a great
Mm,
being,
mm,
might be talking about the weather or a loaf of bread or something, but because the place or the state from which he or she is speaking is the self, the absolute, every word that is spoken conveys the awakening power, and there's
Yes.
a transmission. And that, if you can find a great being that has that capacity to transmit that quality and that awakening power, then, you know, stay there and listen and observe and spend time, as much time as you can, you know, even if it's just a recording on YouTube, you know, or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and they're no longer in the body. It doesn't matter, because the that energy is timeless and it's available.
Yes. Absolutely. Totally agree.
It's just incredibly potent and powerful, you know.
Mm.
And I've shared my story many times about the
Mm.
awakening, but it happened in a lucid dream.
Mm.
And I was in this place that was like, it was looked like India, and I went into this like little low level building,
Mm.
and sitting on a tucket was this great being, this master yogi wearing a white loincloth with a big Buddha belly.
Yeah.
And the thing that was really so obvious was he was the one I'd been looking for my whole life, and
Mm.
everything literally bowed down. When I saw him, when I laid eyes on him, I knew that he
Mm.
was the one, and I knew that he was one with God. And that again, that recognition, the recognition of the awakened self, the embodied self,
Mm-hmm.
in this great being whose name was Bhagavan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri, was my own self-recognition, the recognition of the self within my own being that recognized the self within him. But of course, it took me many years to come to that place
Yeah.
of understanding, because somehow it takes the mind time to kind of understand what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Take some time to get tired of the
Yes.
yeah.
And I,
Of
you
the
know,
whole
I must
being.
have had a lot of energy and vitality to keep going for as long as I did. But
Mm.
what can I say?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was probably very stubborn, and you know, yeah,
Yeah, it's like in Zen they have this as well a lot, you know, where the teacher is talking about somebody totally different, and then suddenly they have their Satori moments. It's fascinating. Yeah, actually, you can talk about whatever. Um, Proximity in this sense plays a role, you know. Um, because if somebody talks about selling eggs on YouTube, probably nobody will awaken. No, no. But um, uh, yeah, even this
yeah,
can happen. But yeah, there must be an intention as well. You know why you're hanging around an enlightened being. You know, well,
yes,
for my part, I don't consider you introduced me as a teacher, but I don't consider myself that way. At least I don't want to, because if there is a teacher, then there is a student, and I don't see it that way. But I like to, what I'm doing on YouTube is I like to share as much as I can, and see, and hope that it just helps. It's what more can I do?
yeah,
Yeah,
yes. It's just sharing. You know,
yeah.
I agree with you. You know, I think we're taught to believe or think in terms of teacher and student, but there really isn't. There's no such thing. You know, there's
Then
just the self.
we then realize that there is not this thing, because it's kind of you kind of feel it. I felt it with my teacher, and I was very impressed when I first met him in person, that he treated me like a god. And I was like, well, you are the teacher. I have to pay this respect to you. No, he did to me. And it makes sense why. You know, he didn't see any difference. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
And well, another interesting thing is that these good teachers, they would always encourage you to practice, and they would encourage you to, like we talked in the beginning, to cultivate these beautiful qualities, because they seem to be important. Um, but we can be even ignorant to that when we are on a non-dual path and we say, well, there is nobody who cultivates any qualities. Yeah, but when you are interacting in life, then these qualities, they are really, really important for not only for you, but for anybody else that you meet. And they will feel appreciated, they will feel respected. And that alone, that will make their day probably.
Yes.
So it is, Advaita is very radical, and it is very true because it cuts like a scalpel through everything that there is, and it wants to take you there immediately. In the theory, in the books, yes, but in real life, there was often, like I mentioned, a relationship between somebody that talks to you, and you had this relationship, and it was going on sometimes for many years, you know, and then something happens or it doesn't. Who can say, right? But this is what people often forget, and there's this type of arrogance and ignorance that I notice today online. Everybody knows. Well, I'm very happy for people that know, but it
Yes.
doesn't.
I,
Well, then show me, show that way that you know. But if you're being ignorant, if you cannot listen, and um, uh, where is your heart in this? Is it just an intellectual understanding? Well, that is good as well for me. You see, well,
yeah.
get it intellectually, and then find out if it is really true. And this is what, we are having this conversation, and I am 1000% sure we're talking about the same thing here. There is no conflict in our conversation. Each word you say, I totally understand, and I think it's the other way around as well. Today, when somebody talks to me about this topic or the self, even this has not to be talked about actually, but
Mm-hmm.
in the situation where we're doing it, I immediately from two words can recognize, does this come from the right place or does it not come from the right place? And this recognition, I could not do that before, because you can follow quote unquote teachers that there's everything in the world. There's people who do it for money, and that is a big motivator. So there are very good speakers out there who can mislead you to think that this is the truth, and at some point you will find out. But the truth is really when you listen to somebody and it resonates 200%, there is no conflict there. I don't know how to describe it, but
Yes.
you really know.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. There's an absolute resonance. And what I can say from here is I don't know anything. I know nothing at all. Absolute. But I would say I trust the place of not knowing. That's the place I trust. Because everything that is needed to be known arises from that place or space or whatever, or state or whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of the best I can do, and I serve that place. And like you said, I can feel intuitively when someone's speaking, especially if they present as, a great being, a teacher, and whatever you want to call it. I can tell there's a resonance or not with respect to the place they're coming from or speaking from. And my teacher used to say a person was only half baked, and I can feel that if they're speaking from a place of authenticity or if they're not. And that's what I trust. I trust that feeling place. And it's never misled me. And that's why I encourage people to trust what they're feeling and trust their intuition, and listen from the heart. Don't just listen from the intellect or the mind or the needy mind, the grasping mind.
Exactly. Yeah, teaching can be very confusing sometimes because even the teacher can contradict himself in different situations, and then a very intelligent intellectual student would say, well, you said this, but then you said this. Are you not contradicting yourself? Well, yes, it is a different situation for a different person. It's
Yes.
even this is an individual process. You know, the person that is asking you the question has something inside of him, and as somebody, you know, who communicates, you can see that what it is, where it comes from, and for somebody else, this message might totally not resonate. So, in going with the flow, yes, totally. This is what it's becoming more and more my reality as well, to let things just totally not engage with a personality, like fakely engage into something. Of course, naturally, we have to engage with the world and do things, but we realize that they have all way they happened without our doing. If I can say so. And it's beautiful, trusting process that everything is okay and everything will be all right. You know, a lot of fears can drop off, and doubts that people have. Yeah, that is
beautiful. Beautiful. Well, that might be a good place to end this conversation. I've so enjoyed speaking with you, and it just amazes me that there's so many similarities, but really, you know, there's really nothing to be amazed about, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's just beautiful sharing with you. It feels really, thank you again.
Yes, thank you. It's been really great, really wonderful. I mean, I'd love to continue the conversation at some point if you feel led. No pressure, but we could certainly do this again. But before we close, if you would like to share with people how they can get hold of you, or where they can find you, that would be really wonderful.
Sure. So for the English speaking community, I have the YouTube channel Consciousness in Motion. Dan Lexow is my name. And just send me an email. For now, I don't have any other, internet presence. I do have for my German clients, but for the English-speaking community, not. So just send me an email if you want to reach out, looking for a one-on-one call, or just want to send me a message, and I'm there. I'm there for you.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dan. This has been really delightful. It's been great. I've loved every minute.
Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, I really appreciate your presence. I know time is valuable, and I really appreciate you being here. If you think other people might enjoy this episode, then please let folks know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. So that's us over and out for today. Thank you very much. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.